Hi people, Moino Weifenberg here again as always, and as usual. Yeah, I am busy writing an article on the utilization of the Greater Key of Solomon, the Order of the Pentacles. Long story short, you can find that article, as is almost always the case, or at the very least as usual. You can find that article linked in the description of this video, as well as anything else that might be useful, both in the description as well as on the end screen, or useful or interesting. Now, the purpose of this video is primarily for existing practitioners, although anybody is welcome to watch it, to obtain detailed information in terms of how to utilize the pentacles mentioned within the Greater Key of Solomon Order of Pentacles. I abbreviated it JKOS hyphen OOTP in the article. The article, anybody is welcome to read it, obviously. Just like I said, it applies to both the article as well as this video. But in the article, I generally speaking discuss utilization from a mundane perspective. So for the average person that has little to no magical proficiency. So yeah, that being said, let's move forward. Now, this is the Greater Key of Solomon, the Order of the Pentacles, the PDF. I am simply going to give a couple of examples. Just like I mentioned in the article, practitioners, you might think that if you go through this workbook, this grimoire, you'll see a lot of mentioning of utilizing these pentacles within existing magical operations. For example, it is to be used within a magic circle or within the magic circle for operations of such a nature, blah, 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 blah. Rest assured that you don't have to do that, okay? So, because that would essentially indicate that these pentacles are essentially like extensions of existing magical operations. Now, as far as I can tell, and my senses, and as well as the fact that I'm being told that is the case, that is how these pentacles originally started. But due to their tremendous level of power and potency, their great level of power and potency at the very least, you can use these pentacles as an individualistic operation all by themselves. So you don't need to have like an existing ritual put in place or anything like that. No, you can literally just go about everything in the traditional manner and use only the pentacle. The pentacle in itself, utilizing it, regardless of how you want to use it, is already a ritual in itself with plenty of power and potency. I'm simply going to explain to practitioners, to magicians primarily, on how to use these pentacles within your practice, essentially, and to simply use them individualistically. So not necessarily, although that is also on the table, so it's completely optional on whether you want to do so, on how to include them in your existing rituals. Now, I already mentioned in my article called the Great Key of Solomon Order of the Pentacles. So not the article that is linked in the description. Within that article, you'll find another article linked, the primordial article that I did on this subject. In that article, so the very first article, which I did years ago in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in 2017, I discussed primarily the first pentacles of every planet. They serve as boosters because the majority of them, well, not the majority, all of them. For example, the first pentacle of Saturn, as the description reads, this pentacle is of great value and utility for striking terror into the spirits, wherefore upon its being shown to them, they submit, and kneeling upon the earth before it, they obey. All of these pentacles, essentially, you scroll past all of them, and for every planet, you'll see that, again, for Jupiter, this serveth to invoke the spirits of Jupiter, and especially those names are written around the pentacle, among whom Parasiel is the Lord and Master of Treasures, and teacheth how to become possessor of places wherein they are. Now, what I mean by that is in the primordial article, I simply discuss on how I used, and I show people, because I had pictures back then, of how I created pretty much every first pentacle of all the 7 classical planets and how to utilize them within existing rituals. It serves as a booster, essentially. It increases your existing potency for working with any spirit. For example, you work with a mercurial spirit like Clonic, for example, then you simply place a pentacle, for example, on his altar. If you have an altar, Or if you intend on summoning a mercurial spirit, you can simply use that pentacle as well on your altar, makeshift altar or ritual. Just place it within your ritual space in which you intend on carrying out your magical operation or ritual, and that will definitely help us up to a substantial bit. Like I said, these pentacles, the first pentacle, the first of all of these series of planets, serve as boosters primarily. So by that I mean that they boost your existing rituals in relation to the planetary, in relation to their planetary alignment. Just like I described, you're going to work with a Martian spirit. The first pentacle of Mars will definitely help in interacting with that spirit overall, as well as rituals, in terms of, as well as ritual results. Just literally every aspect of a ritual or any magical operation from beginning to end will be boosted, generally speaking, when utilizing the first pentacle of all of these planets. Now, that being said, I had to explain that prior so that people that aren't familiar with this are now familiar with it. Now, moving on, I'm going to discuss specifically how to, generally speaking, utilize all of the other things. No, not literally all of them. I'll see if I want to do all of them, but at the very least, I'll be giving a couple of examples on how to utilize all of these these pentacles, so that you get the gist of it. Let's start with the pentacle of Saturn, for example. Um, the fourth pentacle of Saturn. This is the fourth pentacle of Saturn, figure 14. This is what it looks like. Take a good look. I repeat, this is what it looks like. The fourth pentacle of Saturn. This pentacle served principally for executing all the experiments and operations of ruin, destruction, and death. And when it is made in full perfection, it serveth also for those spirits which bring news when thou invokest them from the side of the south. The editor's note says the Hebrew words around the sides of the triangle are from Deuteronomy 4, verse 4, if I'm not mistaken. Hear, O Israel, Ive al-Nive is Ivet Acht, if I'm not mistaken, it's Hebrew. The surrounding versicle is from Psalm CIX 18. As he clothed himself with cursing like as with a garment, so let it come unto his bowels like water and like oil into his bones. In the center of the pentacle is the mystic letter Yud. This is Yud, essentially. Yeah. It speaks for itself. Okay, the purpose of this pentacle is to carry out any ritual that involves ruin, destruction, and death. Think of destroying an enemy. Think of undermining anything or anyone, anything that falls within the scope of the definition of the words ruin, destruction, and death. And also when it's made in full perfection. Full perfection, it simply stands for the fact that it was made with the utmost care and not made hastily, for example, or simply printed out or something like that. And it serves for also commanding spirits that bring news, essentially. When thou invokest them from the side of the south, that's not really necessary. Okay, if you want to stick to the classical context, then you can simply, within your specific location, you can find out where the cardinal directions are. So where east, west, north, and south is, and you can face the south. It is literally not really necessary. It's purely optional, honestly. My senses tell me that right off the bat. Now, let's just say that you wanted to use this pentacle. You're a magician. You're a practicing magician. By default, just like any other magical technique, the things that are going to play a role are how skilled you are as a magician, how strong you are, your power level, active as well as passive, just overall, your life conditions and circumstances. Essentially, the basic things that with any magical operation you need to take into account. And yeah, that's essentially it. There are maybe one or two other exceptional measures, but those are just that, they're exceptions. And you'll only learn those through not trial and error, but through experience, to put it that way. Experience within utilization of this pentacle. Now, if you create this pentacle, you need to listen to your senses, as in, hey, can I use this pentacle without sustaining any damage myself? Are there any drawbacks, etc.? If need be, then you need to use divinations, so readings, or you need to have them done in order to fully, I repeat, in order to fully and surely, as sure can be, know exactly what the result will be, because you don't want to burn your hands, literally as well as figuratively, thereby sustaining damage from simply using this pentacle. So you need to know that you're in the clear. Now, by default, for this kind of for everything, but especially for these kind of pentacles which fall under these metaphorically negative, that have metaphorically negative connotations to it, essentially the necessary evils, if you will, of the world, then you need to you definitely need to, you definitely need to not be a beginner. Even a beginner would be welcome to try this out, but I definitely would not recommend it. Okay, you reap what you sow. If you do so, you do purely so at your own risk, as is the case by default, honestly. Now, you, if you were to use this as a magician, then you by default need to consecrate it every Saturday when Saturn is at its absolute strongest, preferably also in the hour of Saturn. So you need a planetary hours calculator for that. You need the correct level of incense to do so. You need like a black candle. The whole atmosphere, the whole ambiance needs to be Saturnian in nature. So all things in relation to planetary correspondences. And then you simply hold up this pentacle. You let the vapors from the incense. Let me see which incense aligns with Saturn again. Patchouli. Patchouli is patchouli or patchouli is what is the incense that by default aligns with Saturn. And then you simply hold it over the thingy, the incense stick or the thingies that you intend on using, whatever type of incense you intend on using, obviously without burning the pentacle. You hold it like what 10 centimeters removed. You just see to it that the vapors essentially, or that the emanating smoke hits the pentacle, and you simply state your intent, as in I insert your name, intend on using this pentacle for so and such purposes. I am hereby consecrating it, etc. And you repeat it 3 times, since 3 is the number that corresponds to Saturn. Within the Kabbalah, Saturn is called Bina, something that most people watching this, I think, or at least most people are aware of. So Kabbalistic name is Bina. Adding Bina, obviously, to your intent-based speech, your oration, if you will, your self-made oration is definitely also very creative, and definitely will go a long way in a matter of speaking. And yeah, for the rest, what you do specifically is up to you, and up to your objective. Essentially, you can do it every Saturday, for 3 successive Saturdays. And then on the 3rd Saturday, essentially, you officially activate this pentacle, and you simply say, after doing what you usually did, so with consecration, you simply say, okay, you're hereby officially active, carry out your deeds, and fulfill your purpose as I intend, and the purpose as stated in the Greater Key of Solomon Order of the Pentacles. So to bring about ruin, destruction, and death. Now, that's what I said. It depends on your operation. If you, for example, your focus is on destroying an enemy, for example, ruin, destruction, death, then, for example, if you know that your enemy walks past a specific route every single day, then you, for example, bury this pentacle near where he or she will walk past. You, for example, have a picture of them, or a locker of hair. It sounds very witchcrafty, honestly, which I'm not too fond of. But like I said, this is just an example. This is just off the top of my head. You essentially place those on the pentacle, and you just leave it in an undisturbed place, or in an area where it remains undisturbed for the duration of the working. You name it. You do all of these things, and these are notable examples, honestly. By default, you really don't have to do anything in general. You just state your intent, and you place your pentacle just in an area where where it can remain undisturbed, and the results should follow. But like I said, the results are all reliant and dependent, just like any other magical operation, on the aforementioned factors. And exceptional factors are also whether your target has magical protection, Because if your target is also no bitch, so to speak, and your target is literally capable of withstanding magical attacks, and your target is at least just as strong as you, then that's not going to happen, obviously. Like I said, the Pentacles are like any magical operation, but they're quite easy to use, honestly, metaphorically speaking, easy. And obviously, I would recommend to any practitioners that you do this by hand. It doesn't matter whether you can draw word a damn. It does not matter whether you can draw word shit, nothing. You just simply do your best and you draw it to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter whether it looks retarded, even brutally, bluntly put. You simply just do it, and the point is that when you make it, or while you're busy making it, your own energy goes into it, thereby making the bond with you and your pentacle stronger than if you were compared to if you were to, for example, simply print it out or have it made, let alone made by someone else. All of these things are also good. It doesn't really affect anything, but again, all of that stuff goes a long way. It's about the little things. When you combine all of them, they make up quite a they all of them put together are quite make it quite more potent than if you just were to go about it in a regularly speaking convenient and metaphorically speaking sloppy fashion, honestly. But that's just an example, okay? So you get the gist of it in any case. But that's how these pentacles are utilized, because I think a good deal of people have no idea how to utilize these pentacles, really. It's all up in the air. Let me give another example. Jupiter, Mars, yeah. For example, figure 36. Figure 36 is here. Okay, this is figure 36. This is a solar pentacle, the sixth pentacle of the sun specifically. The fifth pentacle of the sun, as it reads, it serveth to invoke those spirits who can transport thee from one place unto another over a long distance and in short time. Editor's note, characters in the passing of the river alphabet forming spirits names. The versicle is from Psalm XCI 11:12. He shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands. Now, the fifth pentacle of the sun, obviously, is primarily for traveling purposes. So, but of course, don't expect literally that you'll be carried from angels to one place to another. Like I said, this is simply a metaphor. So, proper and maximum utilization of this pentacle in a practical and straightforward manner will see to it that any location that you would like to visit or would desire to visit, any country, region, state, province, whatever, what have you, district, you name it, the fifth pentacle of the sun will essentially utilize every available asset at its disposal, and every resource and what have you, to see to it that you get what you want, essentially. So the fifth pentacle of the sun is essentially like an occult travel agent or like an occult passport. It will definitely help you be able to travel globally, and if that is what you desire. Again, just like I said earlier, the basic things that apply to magic by default, how strong you are, your conditions, life conditions, circumstances, blah, 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 all of that stuff plays a role. If you create this pentacle properly, then yeah, you can expect results along the lines of what I described. You want to, for example, travel to Asia, you've never been to Asia, specifically Southeast Asia, then you'll see that things will happen and the results will bring about, provided that you do everything right and that you're strong enough to bring about serious results. Then you'll see that, hey, you'll get results in alignment with your power overall and proficiency. You're going to see that stuff is going to happen to the point where a pathway will open up for you, that will make it so that you can visit at least one of these countries. Anything from the money you need to the diplomatic travel ability, all of that will essentially fall into place thanks to this pentacle. Now, it's the same thing as I said earlier with the pentacle of Saturn. You simply do this on a Sunday. The number that corresponds or aligns with Sunday is 6. So you do this for 6 successive Sundays when the sun is at its absolute strongest. So on the day of the sun, which is the Sunday, and in the hour of the sun. And it just goes on and on and on. You, for example, also in your self-made oration or your speech recitation, you bring up Raphael's name. It goes a long way, Raphael says. He literally said that to me just now. And you do the usual. You consecrate or bless this pentacle on those successive Sundays with a yellow candle nearby and solar incense, which is what's solar incense again? I'm sorry, I can't really. I know it by memory. I can't really put my finger on it. What is solar incense again? I need to look up correspondences. I'm sorry, I've got too much on my mind. Okay, where are you, correspondences? Correspondences. What's solar incense again? Let me see. Where are you? Where are you? Tifarat. Yeah, frankincense. Yeah, frankincense. I couldn't put my finger on that word. Frankincense, incense, and you use it in the same method that I outlined earlier. And for on the 6th successive Sunday, you officially activate it. You leave it somewhere where it remains undisturbed, or where it can be undisturbed. No one's going to bother it. No one's going to put anything near it, etc. And it will do, it'll work its magic, and you'll see for yourself what you can expect in the way of results. Lastly, before I close off this video, I also need to bring up the whole notion of tattoos. I've already said this in the past. Just because I have tattoos doesn't mean that if you, any person watching this, that if you put a tattoo of any of these pentacles, that they'll automatically work for you. As well as a tattoo of a spirit seal or sigil or anything. No. It doesn't work that way. Okay, you can literally put a tattoo of every spirit you can come across in the Goetia or any other magical workbook. That is a very, very bad idea. And if you don't know what you're doing, worst case scenario is horrible things will happen to you. Because you'll be like the bitch of the spirits whose tattoos you put on your body. And best case scenario is that nothing's going to happen. Okay, it will just be like any other regular mundane tattoo. Okay, you need to understand the mechanics behind the tattoo. And you need to be able to measure and gauge and estimate, what the result will be. And again, like I said, putting a tattoo is no different than literally utilizing the pentacles the way I described and or outlined. The only difference is your intent. When you put on a tattoo in general of a spirit or a pentacle, then the effect is permanent because it's not about the physical aspect. You're essentially putting on a tattoo on your astral body, not your physical body. So you're imbuing the effect of any pentacle. For example, if you were to tattoo a pentacle on your body, you're literally permanently imbuing the energy of that pentacle onto you. So it's essentially you're fusing it with your astral body, with your own spirit. So that pentacle and all of its power will become part of you when you have it tattooed on you. That's just something that you need to keep in mind. But not every jackass can just put on pentacle tattoos or tattoos from spirits and it will automatically lead to better results. No, that's just stupid, honestly, because you have no idea what you're doing and why you're doing it, to what extent you're doing it. You can't explain the mechanics behind why these tattoos even work, provided they work at all. In my case, I know why I put on these tattoos because I know that they work. To me, it's no different than any other ritual. The difference is that for me, it's a permanent imbuing of what those tattoos represent onto my astral body to the point where it fuses with my energy and it becomes part of me. The video, for example, on Barbatos and his tattoo is an example. But that doesn't mean that any other person, including anybody watching this, when they put a tattoo of Barbatos, then that will mean that they get the same results. Absolutely not. Nor would I recommend it to anybody. You really, 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 really need to know exactly what you're doing, why you are putting on a tattoo. Will it actually bear fruit? Will it have the intended effect? Will there be any side effects, especially negative effects? Will there be anything? Will there be anything like that? Will the tattoo work at all? By default, for anything like that to work, other than the fact that you need to be a really strong magician by default, not just some kind of average, neophyte or similar or an initiate. No, no, no. You need to be an experienced magician, okay, to be able to do stuff like this and to place a tattoo. And most importantly, your intent. Your intent. It is all about your intent. Now, the exclusions to this, because there are exclusions, tattoos, like, for example, any occult tattoo would work on a mundane person. But like I said, the only way that that person would know in question is if they were recommended by someone like me. I can, for example, tell someone, hey, listen, if you put a tattoo of like a pentacle on you, then it will bring about results. And I can tell them exactly how it will bring about results and to what extent and whatnot, and all the implications involved, and regarding longevity, whether it's part-time or permanent or you name it, or lifetime. It just goes on. With some people, they do not need magical proficiency. A tattoo will work by default, okay? But again, someone else, a specialist, so essentially me or someone like me, in a matter of speaking, has already worked out all the mechanics and the details, and the person simply needs to carry out set actions. Similar to you bringing your computer to a computer store to have it fixed, and the person simply explains in layman terms to you what's wrong with the computer, and he fixes it or she fixes it, end of story, so that you don't have to bother with it. But that doesn't mean that, for example, because you saw the person reboot the computer, then that will automatically mean that if you reboot the computer, that it will essentially produce the same effect in the way of it also working for you all of a sudden. No, what's going to happen is that if you're stupid enough to do that, you reboot the computer, you have no idea what you're doing, and your computer will no longer want to start up, and then you're in deep shit. Like I said, you need to understand something in utmost detail to be able to be master of it, and to be able to actually make any modifications and bring about maximum results and the practical benefits that accompany said results. So that's all, people. Bye.